Hey everyone at the North Texas Teen Book Festival. It's Jeff Kinney, author of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series, and lately Raleigh Jefferson's awesome, friendly books as well. I'm saying hi to you today from Plainville, Massachusetts. This is where I live. Believe it or not, Plainville really is a real town. And I am on the third floor of my bookstore, which is called An Unlikely Story. And I'm in the Wimpy Kid studio, so I'm at the center of the Wimpy Kid universe. I have been invited to the North Texas Teen Book Festival several times, and each time I've had to decline. I'm either traveling or working on deadlines, so I've never gotten to go. So I feel badly that I've never been able to be there in person, but I feel great that I'm able to attend this year virtually. These days, I'm getting ready to tour for this book, Raleigh Jefferson's Awesome Spooky Stories, which is like a collection of short, scary stories written by Raleigh Jefferson. And I'm planning a tour. Yes, I know it sounds crazy to be touring during a global pandemic, but we figured out a way to do it really safely. So we're going to have a drive-through event that's like spooky, almost like an outdoor haunted house, if you will. And then at the end of the experience, I'm going to be dressed up as a gravedigger, and I'm going to hand kids their books on an extra long shovel to make sure we maintain that social distance. As an author, it's really hard to write a book in isolation and then to not meet the people who are reading the books, the people who the books are intended for. So for the last year, all throughout the pandemic, I've been touring, figuring out a way to do it safely and to kind of connect with the fans in a really weird way. I was pretty surprised recently to realize that I've written 21 books. It kind of snuck up on me. I've only been a published author for about 14 years, so I'm doing a little bit better than one book a year. In fact, these days I'm doing 2 books a year, one Greg Heffley book and one Raleigh Jefferson book. The Greg books are they're kind of formulaic in a way. I'm always trying to explore a different aspect of childhood that I haven't explored before. And the Raleigh books are just kind of wild. Each one's going to be really different, and as long as I can keep them really fresh, I'm going to keep writing those. When it's time for me to write a new book, I always start with the jokes. Each one of these Diary of a Wimpy Kid books or Raleigh Jefferson books takes maybe about 350 jokes. I end up taking the best 200 or so of those jokes and putting them into the book, but it always takes a lot of jokes to get started on a book. This is actually a really big question, and the answer has changed over time. So I started writing Diary of a Wimpy Kid in 1998, and I set out to write a book about my childhood, like a funhouse mirror version of my childhood. So the first thing that I did was I got a blank notebook and I started writing down every funny thing that I remembered from my childhood, because I figured I sort of owned the copyright to my own life. So I started putting down in this sketchbook every funny thing that I could remember. At first I thought that it was going to take me about 2 or 3 months to fill out this whole book. Well, it took me about 4 years. I started writing smaller and smaller over time for some reason, so I started to really pack the pages. I think that I was afraid that I was going to finish the book too quickly and I wasn't going to have enough good stuff. So it took me 4 years to write down all of the funny ideas for Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which were mostly childhood memories. Then it took me another 4 years to write the first draft of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and then another year to kind of get everything ready. So from beginning to end, about 9 years to get that first book ready. For the first 5 books in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I drew off of all of those ideas, all of those memories that I had as a kid. So those first 5 books are kind of true to life in a way. My family members could read those books and say, oh yeah, that happened in this way. You know, all the facts have kind of gone through the fiction blender, but it's all there. There's a lot of truth in it. So what happened after that is I started to have to create fresh memories in a way. It got really hard to write these books from probably about book 6 to book 11 because I was trying to remember more, delve into my childhood even more, and I was also trying to kind of generate fresh ideas from my imagination. That was really, really time consuming. I would spend a lot of time laying on the couch. I tried everything. I'd swing on a swing set. I'd ride a bicycle in circles on a cul-de-sac. And then ultimately I'd take these really long walks. Sometimes I'd walk as many as 3 or 4 hours a day. And sometimes I'd come back completely empty-handed. I'd come back with maybe 1 or 2 jokes if I was really lucky. So it really wasn't an efficient way to write books. And I needed to find a new way of writing jokes if I was going to have a future in creating new Wimpy Kid books. Everything changed for me in my writing life when I was introduced to a creative tool set called Systematic Inventive Thinking, which was created by a team in Israel. Now, systematic inventive thinking, it sounds kind of boring, right? But it's actually really exciting to me as a joke writer because it opened all sorts of doors. So I'm going to give you a really quick lesson in how this works. So it's really easy in a way. The first thing you do is you take something, like I'll take an object here, my pair of glasses. First thing that you do is you list the parts or the components, right? So glasses are pretty simple. You've just got the lenses and the frames. Now what you do is you take these different tools like subtraction, division, multiplication, and apply them to each part of the glasses. Okay, so here with the glasses I would say, let's use subtraction and take away the lenses. Okay, imagine that you take away the lenses from these glasses. Now all you've got are glasses with frames, no lenses. And you ask yourself, you say, is there anybody that could use a product like that? Is there anybody in the world that could use glasses that have no lenses? And you think about it, and after a while you say, actually, you know, racquetball goggles are actually really thick glasses, thick frames with no lenses. And then I'm a fan of the NBA, and I think, you know what? NBA players, some NBA players, they really want to look fashionable. So in their photo shoots, they want to look cool, so they have kind of cool glasses, cooler than mine, but they don't have lenses. And why is that? Well, A, they don't really need them to see, and B, because when they get their pictures taken, they don't want the light, the bulbs to flash and catch the reflection. So there we go. You would say, yeah, I actually do see a use for glasses without lenses. And so then let's flip that. Let's say, okay, let's take glasses, and now this time we'll subtract the frames. So we subtract the frames, now we have 2 loose lenses, kind of imagine 2 loose lenses on the ground. And at first you think, who could possibly use that? Who could possibly use lenses that don't have frames? You know, you'd have to actually hold them up to your eyes. Well, actually, if you think about it, if you shrunk those lenses way, way down, now you have something that a lot of people do use, which are contact lenses. So here I've just created a few new products. Imagine that contact lenses hadn't existed yet. And I've done it really fast and really efficiently. That's the way I come up with the jokes for my books in Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Let's take the book, The Getaway. This book is about traveling on an airplane, going to an island. So I had to write about an airplane, right? And so the first thing I did was I listed all the parts, the wings, the seats, the pilot, the passengers, the bathroom, everything I could think of. So you see, that's not a very difficult creative task. It just takes a lot of time. So it probably takes me an hour or 2 to list every single thing that I can in the airplane, including even like the barf bags that they put in, in the back of the seats. So that's the first thing I do. It's not a hard creative task. And then the next thing I do is I take those tools, subtraction, multiplication, division, and a few others, and I go through each piece of the plane. Now this takes a really long time. It takes, it could take me months to write all of the components out and then apply the tools to each one. But here's how I get the jokes for Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Let's take, for example, the pilot of the plane. So I say, okay, take the pilot and let's subtract the pilot of the plane. Well, do you have a joke there? There's a plane with no pilot. That doesn't sound very funny to me, actually. But then actually I got a joke out of it. I thought, you know, Greg, he encounters a little bit of turbulence on the plane, and he thinks, this is really scary. And he thinks, if I was the pilot and I encountered bumpy air, I'd be out of there. So Greg thinks he would parachute out of the plane. And of course, it's a horrifying thought because then all the passengers would perish. But the joke is that Greg, you know, encounters a little bit of turbulence and he's just out of there. And that joke came directly from subtraction. There's another joke in The Getaway where Greg, you know, he gets up to go to the bathroom, and when he comes back to his seat, there's a baby asleep in his seat. That's another example of subtraction, is that I thought, okay, what if you take away the seat? What if you take away Greg's seat? What could happen? How could Greg's seat be taken away? So in all of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books from The Getaway on, I use this systematic inventive thinking, and it just generates the joke so quickly. You know, whereas in the old days, what I do is I take these long walks or ride my bike and all these kinds of things, mow the lawn, and it wasn't an efficient way of writing. Now I use this system where I can just sort of grind and create the jokes in a really methodical and predictable sort of way. And it's taken my writing process from, I'd say it used to take me about 7 months to write all of the jokes for a Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, and it was not, I was not done efficiently. Now I could write all of the jokes in about a month and a half. So it's been just a total game changer, and it's what's allowed me to write 2 books a year. So it's a big deal, and I'm really lucky and grateful to the team that created this method and this tool set for creative thinking. As soon as COVID-19 struck, which was about a year ago to the day, it got really hard to write in my house. I have 2 boys, they're both in high school, they're both doing remote learning, and you know, we were living in a kind of a cramped house. So it was really impossible for me to write or do any creative thinking. So I had to find other places to be. And I couldn't really be indoors anywhere at that time. If you'll remember, at that time, it was really scary to be out. It was scary to even go to the grocery store. And we didn't know what this disease was all about. So I had to find a place where I could write, where I wouldn't be bothered and I wouldn't be in any kind of danger. So I started actually writing at the cemetery. So the last 2 books that I wrote were written almost completely at the Plainville Cemetery. I would pull up my car to a nice spot by a lake or a pond, and I'd have a blanket because it was cold at that time of year, and I had some snacks. My snacks of choice were Starburst jelly beans, Pringles, the ones that are pepperoni flavored, and then Oreo double stuffed cookies. So, you know, it's some sort of questionable food that fueled those books, but that's how I wrote. I just sit there at the cemetery and write all day long. My new book is called Raleigh Jefferson's Awesome, Friendly, Spooky Stories. It's really a different kind of Wimpy Kid book. First of all, it's a collection of short stories. I've never done that before. It's all from the imagination of Raleigh Jefferson, so I had to make it sort of pure and a little bit twisted at the same time. I wrote this book in like record time. I started in the middle of November, and it was on the printing press at the end of January. So it's like kind of a high wire act writing these Raleigh Jefferson books. Like I have to be good and also fast, so it's a big challenge to me. But this collection of short stories, they're all over the place. There's one about a vampire, there's one about a werewolf, there's one about an old woman who accidentally gets buried alive because she was taking a nap. Hope I don't get in trouble for that one. And there's one story called The Invasion. It's about a zombie invasion. It's a good example of using subtraction for a major story point. So in this story, there's a city that's about to get invaded by zombies, and all of the townspeople meet and they try to decide what to do. How are they going to prevent this zombie invasion? And so I use subtraction and I take away the fight, right? So I say, I'm going to subtract the resistance. People are actually going to let zombies into the city. And so then it's a really interesting story about basically assimilation, immigration in a way, because the zombies come in and they live amongst the people in this city and they all have to figure out how to get along. And the zombies learn things from the humans and the humans learn things from zombies. So that's all from subtraction. So it's a crazy book. It's really experimental and I just really hope people like it. Yes, I would be happy to show you around my studio. Now, if these were normal times and I was there in person in Texas, of course I couldn't show you around my studio in Plainville, Massachusetts. So this is a special treat we can only do because we're doing this virtually. So let me show you around my studio. All right, I'll give you a 360 view first. You can see it's really colorful. We've got a lot going on in here. We wanted this to really feel like you were kind of living in the brand in a way. And I'll show you over here. I have a few Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, these blimps. It was very exciting to win those. And in fact, I won it, I think, 6 times. And I was really hoping to win it like 8 times. So I built 8 cases. And as you can see, 2 of the cases are blank. So I did not win again. In fact, they took away the favorite book category, so I don't even have a chance to win again. But that I had to eat a little bit of crow there by building 2 cases that are not filled with Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. All right, so we have this giant cheese wall, which sometimes you can see like fish swimming by, waterfalls, all sorts of things. We have over here a Wimpy Kid statue. If you've ever read the 3rd Wimpy Kid book and you look at the back cover, there's Greg in his mom's bathrobe. Here are all the Wimpy Kid books in all the different languages. There are currently 65 different versions of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. In fact, the last Diary of a Wimpy Kid translation was done in Somalian, and it's only published in Sweden. There's a long story behind that. So this is the desk where I work. I do everything digitally. So I draw on this tablet with a plastic pen. I used to do everything with pen and ink. I wasn't very good at it, and then when the digital revolution came, I was able to become a better cartoonist because I could do everything digitally. All right, here's something cool. This is my prized possession. It's an Uncle Scrooge McDuck statue. My favorite cartoonist of all time is Carl Barks, who created Uncle Scrooge. And this statue, legend has it that it was actually owned by Michael Jackson. So pretty cool. All right, that's a telephone booth. That looks like it came from the UK. It's got a comfy chair in there. On days like this when I need to write, I can go inside of it. We've got a bunch of movie props in this bay, so some things from the long haul. We have a Harry Potter broom over there for some reason. Let's go outside of the studio. So this is a whole studio floor. It's going to get a little dark in here, but I kept it dark so you could see some kind of cool stuff. All right, right here we have replicas of the balloons made for the Macy's Day Parade. So there's balloon number 2 and number 1 in the background. And you can see this is what it's like. This is what the balloon looks like when it's flying in the Macy's Day Parade. So here's Greg, and you can see how small people are and how big the hand is. So in this room, you can see all these colorful clouds. So I wanted to do something really different from this floor. Since it's the highest floor in Plainville, Massachusetts, I wanted to do something that felt like it was up in the air. So these cloud lights, they change all the time. If it's Valentine's Day, they'll be pink. If it's St. Patrick's Day, they'll be green. On the 4th of July, they go off like fireworks. All right, it's a little dark in here. But you can see here is Roderick's kitchenette. So these things look like giant speakers, but they are actually refrigerators. Pretty cool. And we have over here these airplane fuselages. So they look like they've been cut out from an airplane. And my employees, the staffers from An Unlikely Story, they come up here to eat and to meet. And you can see right now it looks like it's outside if you look out these fake windows, but we're going to change it over to daylight so it's really sunny. So we've got some other stuff over here. Everything's really junky up here right now because, you know, we're in these COVID times. We took all of our couches from upstairs and put them up here. But you can see over here we have a loaded diaper van that's flying into the wall. And up above it is a loaded diaper drum set that's kind of upside down. Like I said, everything has this kind of up in the air feel to it. I've got a few standees. Over here I've got the Getaway airplane and a few standees. They look kind of creepy in the dark in silhouette. And they are sitting behind game show cabinets. When I was a teenager, I almost made it onto one of those academic teen game shows. I just barely made the cut. So one of the things that we do around here is that we have game shows. We have Jeopardy style tournaments for teenagers. And over here, one of the last things I'll show you is that here is the grout from the 14th Wimpy Kid book. So we're always trying to add things that came from the latest book. So I know these are rough times. These COVID times really stink. We all miss our friends. This has taken a huge bite out of our lives. But I hope you're looking forward to normal times. I certainly am. I'm looking for a time that we can reconnect. I'm looking forward to a time when the North Texas Teen Book Festival is at full strength again. And I hope to meet you one day in person. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you down the road.